directors for Light Ministries. And Light is the Lay Institute for Global Health Training. And so what we do is we travel to churches, as we came to Rockingham, and what we do is we train the lay members, get them excited, have a revival in the church on the Health Emphasis weekend to get them ready to take a message of health to their community. And so that's what our goal is. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how we can transition that for the church into a health ministries, outreach. Light, not only do we go to churches, but we actually have an online school. And our online school is the essentials of health evangelism. What it is it's to prepare people for doing medical missionary work in their own community. And so I would love you to think about that, something that you might be interested in, because time is short, folks. We've said this a couple times during the weekend. However, it's interesting to realize that, as Spirit of Prophecy says, that in the end times, the last two works that will finish the work are literature evangelism and medical missionary work. And so for us to be prepared not only for ourselves and our family, but to be able to help others in their time of need, could change their life for the kingdom. And so if you have a special interest in learning more about medical missionary work and being able to do it on your own, at your own pace, by the way, we do our program in Spanish too. I'm encouraging everybody, if you are really trying to embrace English more, that we have it in English, but if you're a better learner in Spanish, we do our program in Spanish. So just so you know, you could take this. Something I like to tell the churches is that if you're interested and you do get a group together, and in fact, we can talk a little bit more about this after the cooking class. We do a discount. The program is normally $497, and you have a year to complete it. However, we can do a discount just because we came to the church. But if we get 5 or more people, it goes 5 to 9 people goes down more, and goes down more, and 10 people or whatever. But I think it would be a great opportunity. I see some enthusiasm in this church to do God's work. It's nice that sometimes we get the seat warmers. They'll come, they're like, oh, this is a nice program, and that's it. But I see enthusiasm here. And so I hope that maybe there's a group of people who want to embrace, especially the health message, to be able to transition that to your outreach to your community. So something to pray about, something to think about. Let the Holy Spirit speak to your heart. But of course, before we get started, I would like to ask the Lord to be with us. Pastor, would you mind giving us a word of prayer?
Yeah, I'd love to pray.
Okay.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for you giving us, Lord. We just ask that you be here with us. We thank you for Light Ministries that is here, teaching us so much. We ask that this be a meaningful time to each of us, and that we be able to implement new healthy choices in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, I'm going to get started, and I want to let you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the resources we have. I'll do a little more introduction, and then we're going to get right into the cooking. So I'd like to share with you, some of you have already seen it, but this cookbook called Plant-Based Made Simple. Now, first of all, I believe it's an excellent cookbook, and I know the author. So, because I know the author, I can highly recommend the book. So anyway, but actually I am the author of the book. Just what I want to tell you a little bit about what this book is about, so that it can help you if you have an interest in it. So the cookbook, I collaborated with the Wildwood Center for Health Evangelism. They did all my layout, all my editing, and I did the creative part of doing the recipes. We co-copyrighted the book, so they own half of it, I own half of it. If they don't want it anymore, it's all mine. If I don't want it anymore, it's all theirs. If not, we stay in partnership forever. But the book, I think it's kind of special. First of all, it has something called a soft touch cover. Feels very nice. It also has something called a lay flat binding, which means that when you're in the kitchen, you don't have to worry about getting fingerprints of flour all over your book, right? Because you can just kind of bend the binding a little bit and it'll stay flat. So that's it. It also has a color picture for every recipe. I had a great team of photographers to do my pictures at Wildwood. They have a media team there. It also has a special chapter in it called Hold That Spatula. What you need to know is before you start cooking. A lot of people, I think this is an excellent transitional cookbook for people who want to be more plant-based. You know, maybe they're already vegetarian, or maybe they're meat eaters that want to incorporate more. I wanted to make this cookbook really good for everybody. Even if you are plant-based, you're going to find something in here that is something new to you, or some new, recipes or new techniques, or different flavors for same recipes, right? But for people that don't cook plant-based normally, there are ingredients or techniques or different little things that you might want to know, because you might see something like, here's a good one. You're going to see in a couple of my recipes using dextrinized rice. Tell me, anybody here know how to dextrinize rice? Well, we got one. Where's that one, right? There's always one in a crowd, right? No. Dextrinizing means that you're toasting them in a pan. Toasting it in a pan, in a dry pan, just kind of like browning it. Why you do that? Number one, it's more flavorful. It cooks faster. So if you're using brown rice sometimes takes a long time. Sometimes it can be a little chewy, right? Because it's the whole grain. It's light and fluffy, but the most important part is it becomes easily digestible for our system. So it becomes a better digestion, right? So it's good for our health. So there might be a technique in there, or something like nutritional yeast somebody might not be familiar with. And it talks a little bit about what that is. So this is something, if you see something in the cookbook, you're like, what is that? Where do you get that? Look up in the front, because you're probably going to find it. The second thing I have here is, like I said, color pictures. But I also put in QR codes. Are you familiar with QR codes? Right? I'm so high tech. Well, actually, my media department are all in like their late 20s, early 30s. So they were all on board, like, let's do QR codes, right? So you actually, after we finish our cooking class here, we're already friends. I mean, I already feel like I'm family here at this church, right? And so, but you may miss me. I'm just going to tell you, you might miss me. So what you do is you QR code me, boop, I come right in your kitchen, and we do the recipe together. How's that? So yeah, so we have about 38 recipes that, so you know what, then you can say, oh, that's how she does it. But sometimes when you read a recipe, you're like, how did she do that again? Like, what did she do? I tried to be very simple, but if there's something that might be, you can just look me up, right? So a couple other things. First of all, we have in there, obviously the servings. We have something, some of the recipes are 30-minute or less recipes. Who here likes fast recipes? Oh yeah, right? We all have busy lives. And even if we're not working full-time, we're busy, right? So 30-minute or less recipes make it very easy. So there's highlighted there. And lastly, from being the cooking class instructor, I realized that there's a lot of dietary needs out there. Gluten-free, soy-free, nut-free, oil-free. These are the 4 categories that I realized were the most important to people when I taught cooking schools. Therefore, I highlighted this recipe may be gluten-free, or it might be a gluten-free option. So I'll give you an alternative to do. So actually, not even by design, because these recipes were God-inspired. He directed what I should put in here. People say, oh, these are your favorite recipes? I'm like, not really. They're good ones. But they're not my all-time favorites. I don't cook these all the time, But these are the ones that God directed me to put in the cookbook. So I did that. And, but there are 75 gluten-free recipes in here out of 98. So that was, and that's not by our design, because we're not gluten-free. So it's kind of interesting that, they're in there, but I think they're delicious. And my catchphrase, simple. They're simple recipes with simple ingredients. Nutritious, well, that's the crux of the matter. And delicious. Because if they don't taste good, you're not going to eat them. The last thing, and I think some of the ladies may appreciate this, is that I almost missed the deadline, because when we were done, the guy that did my layout, you heard the word God, right? The guy that did my layout handed me the manuscript, and I go, it's unacceptable. And he goes, what? I'm like, it's unacceptable. He goes, Karen, why? You have a deadline. I go, I want every title to color coordinate with the picture. And he goes, what? I go, yeah, no, I want every title to color coordinate with the picture. He had like blue, maybe another chapter was yellow. I'm like, no. And so he said, great, well, you can do it yourself. And so I had to painfully sit there with the editor, because she helped me, and we color coordinated every title. We made the deadline and we got the book 5 days early. I think 3 or 5 days early, something like that. I think it was 3 days. Anyway, to make a long story short, that is the cookbook. If you have any questions about it, I'll be happy to sign it, because you never know, I could be famous one day, right? I could, and if I am, you'll have my signature. So anyway, so we have plenty of them, of course, and if you're interested, I'm sorry, I do not have it in Spanish, because it was quite pricey to do it in English. Then if I had to reprint it and have somebody translate it, forget it, I would never be able to do it. So, real quick, I'll just tell you about a couple other health resources that we have at the table. Yesterday, if you were here for the charcoal class, we have books that are a great resource about charcoal. God's Pharmacy, we did those natural remedies, right? Well, the natural remedies, there are many, many more here in the God's Pharmacy book. Some of them I have variations that I handed you already, but we have some more here. The Pandemic Busters. This book here is 22 simple and easy immune boosters you can do at home. This is written by Dr. Eddie Ramirez. He's a good friend of ours, and he worked directly for many, many years with Neil Nedley at Weimar. He was the one that actually went out and traveled for Weimar all over the world. Dr. Eddie, do anybody know Dr. Ramirez? Heard of him? He's excellent. He's a wonderful man. But anyway, this is very easy. It's almost like a cartoon book, makes it easy. And lastly, one of my favorite health books that I carry is Fighting Disease with Food. If you have any ailments, you have anything, even something like bronchitis, what this does is it gives you the list of foods that are going to help. It tells you the health benefit of each food. It tells you how to use it. And then, of course, it tells you the composition based on a cup of that food. So this is an excellent book as well. It's one of my favorite resources for people because it kind of covers a lot of different health issues. Anyway, I just wanted to share those with you because sometimes people come to the table and they don't know what there are. I do have other books too. I have a couple other cookbooks with me, 10 Talents. I also have the Natural Remedies Encyclopedia as well. All right, without further ado, let's get started a little bit more about the cooking school. So I did mention to you that Ron and I are the North American Division Directors for Life. I have a certificate in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University's Center for Nutritional Studies. I also am a trained plant-based chef with the Ruby International Cooking School. Now the interesting thing, when I took my cooking training, now I was a home chef, I'm a home cook, let's call me home cook, but I really realized I wanted to hone my skills better to do presentations. You know, for me, it was important to just learn some of the little things that may enhance what I was already doing. And I found the program at the Ruby International Culinary Arts School under the title Forks Over Knives. Have you heard of the movie Forks Over Knives? Excellent documentary. It was done about 15 years ago, okay, 15, 16 years ago. I'm going to tell you, watch it. It is straight in line with our health message, okay? It was not done by Adventists, but it is, you see, we have this message for 150, 160 years, right? But the world is catching up with us because we haven't been giving them what they needed, so they have now found out on their own. But yet we still have an important role to play because there's so many people out there that are looking for this information. Remember what we said yesterday. When we teach health, people are going to say, if they know that much about health, there's something about their religious beliefs that is worth investigation. That is one about the easiest way we can minister to others because the Holy Spirit is doing that work. We are sharing with them what we've learned about good health. And let me tell you, there is a whole world of people out there who are embracing plant-based lifestyle. Now you see, I'm not actually saying vegan, am I? Right? And vegan, you know, many people, you know, hear the word vegan and they're like, okay, yeah, I know what that is, that's no animal products. And that's exactly right what that is. It means no animal products. But there is a difference between whole food plant-based and vegan. And the reason, and the difference is that when you are a vegan, you're gonna take out animal products. That's it. Even if you eat leather, things like that, that's an animal product, something that's made, like shampoo that might be tested on an animal, you won't use. Okay? It's a lifestyle, and it has some merit to it. I mean, we love animals. God created these beautiful animals for us, right? However, there's not really a health component to a vegan lifestyle. You see, vegan came back from like the Far Eastern religions. There was a lot of religious practice of thinking of reincarnation. So what happened one day, I should say, somebody said, if mom dies and comes back as a chicken on my farm, and we're having chicken for dinner on Sunday, this is not a good idea, right? So all of a sudden we're like, we cannot use animal products, because in their religious belief, they believe you come back in some kind of other form. So that spilled over into our culture today, where now veganism is actually more associated with animal activism, okay? And again, if anybody knows me, I am an animal lover, okay? So I can resonate with that piece of it. But there's more to what our health message is, right? Then there is something called whole food plant-based. So I like to call us plant-based eaters, because you see, a whole food plant-based diet doesn't just take animal products out, but it replaces them with healthy alternatives. And that is what the goal is when we're talking about more nutritional-oriented health, plant-based for health. And so that's what we're going to learn here. And so what I love the fact that Forks Over Knives embraces whole food plant-based. All right, so that was it. Ron and I are also we've also graduated from the Wildwood Center for Health Evangelism. We are medical missionaries trained at Wildwood. And many of you in this church already, I knew when I met some of you, have seen me. Actually, I'm a guest chef on Three Angels Broadcasting Network. In fact, I've done about 8 programs, and I'm going back to record some more. They called me, and we just confirmed it last week. So I'll be going back to 3ABN. So look for some new programs if you have seen many of mine already. You can look for some new ones coming up probably toward the end of the year when they edit them. Let's see. All right, so we're going to talk a couple minutes about nutrition. I believe that this cooking class, I think every one of you know how to cook. First of all, I know how some of you know how to cook, because I had some meals yesterday and they were delicious, and I've had the pleasure of having some delicious food even upon our arrival. So I know that some of you know how to cook. So I'm not worried about you learning how to cook. We're going to demonstrate, don't worry. And I promise you we're going to eat too. Everybody brought your appetite, right? Yes. We will have samples, okay. But I'm not worried about that piece. What I believe is this should be an education. And so we should be learning something about cooking, not just cooking food, but learning something about why we're making changes in our diet, maybe about ingredients and things like that. So I hope that that's what you get out of this program today. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition. Did you know that 94 to 96%, and I mentioned this on Friday, so if you weren't here on Friday, you didn't hear this yet, 94 to 96% of all disease. Now I'm talking everything from the common cold all the way up to something like stage 4 cancer, right? 94 to 96% of all disease is lifestyle. That means that only 4 to 6% is straight genetics. Now when I'm talking about straight genetics, I would mean that you have not done anything to cause your illness. It means that you were born with a genetic issue. Here's a perfect example. I have a prosthetic hip. The reason why is because I was born with the genetic problem. One of my hips was slightly smaller than the other. So as I grew and as I got older, I wore out the cartilage in this hip. Now, all of my other joints are perfect. In fact, even up until last year, they had to x-ray me because I fell. And I sprained everything. And the doctor said, well, you have good joints. Right? So I know my joints are all good. But this one wore out completely, to the point where I couldn't even barely walk anymore. And so there was a point where we had to go for, a surgery. Praise God that, we have doctors that know how to do these wonderful things, right? And is it as good as how God made me originally? No, but I can walk again, right? So I'm dead, right? I can get around at least. So that was a genetic problem. I did nothing to cause that hip to be too small. However, sometimes we have something called a genetic propensity. A genetic propensity is where hereditarily our genes have been somewhat mutated to sometimes be susceptible to disease based on triggers, okay? And so our lifestyle is what the trigger puller is. So this is an example. If grandma had type 2 diabetes, and then mom had type 2 diabetes, does daughter have to have type 2 diabetes? The answer is no, correct. You're right. That's because she may have a more susceptible chance of getting diabetes, but it's based on her lifestyle. You see, because type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease. Therefore, if mom did what grandma did, she had the susceptibility, she got diabetes. If daughter does what mom and grandma did, she's probably going to get diabetes. However, we can change our thought process to embrace a healthier lifestyle, and daughter may never have diabetes. I mentioned this. My mother is a type 1 diabetic, was a type 1, I'm sorry, she's deceased. I had a 7 times more likely chance of getting type 2 diabetes. I'm not diabetic. Ron's mother was a type 2 diabetic. He grew up in a household with type 2 diabetes and lifestyle that was not, conducive to the healthiest lifestyle. Ron does not have diabetes. What is the difference? He should, or I should, right? But we don't, and it's because the lifestyle is what the trigger is. So let's remember that all disease, 96% is almost everything. So we can control, in fact, we don't have to prevent disease. We can, even when disease happens, we can reverse disease, okay? So remember, just because somebody gets type 2 diabetes, I'll use that as an example again, you could walk away with no diabetes. Now, the doctors will say, oh no, you're once a diabetic, always a diabetic. And that is because they don't teach lifestyle. People come to the Lifestyle Center at Wildwood all the time. In an 11-day program or a 25-day program, they leave on no medications with A1Cs and blood, well, their A1C they have to check later, but their blood sugar levels for the 2 weeks or the month and in perfect range. How does that happen when they've been a diabetic for 20 years? And the doctors can't. That's because medicine does not fix disease. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. No medicine will reverse disease. Now, sometimes we have to take medications because they may help us. Like maybe just say a metformin, right? For somebody who's diabetic, may help regulate their blood sugar. But does taking the metformin get rid of the diabetes? It doesn't. It doesn't. In fact, it kind of progresses the disease until you go more and more and more into that. So understand, medicines, although sometimes are life-saving and we have no other choice, there's some times where people, Pastor, I'm not going to pick on you, but you did mention it. Pastor, do you have to take insulin?
Yes.
Yes, he does. He has no choice. My mother, the same thing. If they don't take insulin, they will die, right? He has no choice, right? So thank God for medications, right? For that. But taking the insulin isn't fixing your type 1 diabetes, right? It's the same thing with anything, whether it's hypertension, heart disease, whatever we're dealing with cancer, the medication is not fixing us. We need to ascertain the problem, figure out what the cause is, change the environment, and then assist nature, nutrition. Now we're going to get to the part that is important and why I'm passionate about cooking schools. I'm passionate about cooking schools because of those 94 to 96% of disease, 60 to 70% is directly related to what we do. Do you realize that 60 to 70% of disease happens because of our food? So, for me, this is the easiest way that I can share with you how you can make small changes. And you know what? Nobody goes from 0 to 100. It just doesn't work well that way for most people. What we do is we make those small changes. And as we do that, we grow into loving new tastes, new foods. You know, God gave us taste buds, right? He didn't make everything taste like nothing. He made us desire food. So we want to have good, tasty food. But just remember, this is what the problem is. Let's go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Satan has been taunting us with appetite from the beginning. He made that fruit so, interesting to Eve, to the point where she desired it. And she desired the knowledge too. But let me tell you, the fruit was pretty good. And I'm sure it tasted really good. Right? And starting from there, these corrupted things with genetically modified foods, refined sugars, just go on and on and on and on. High-fat fried foods, yeah, who doesn't like those, right? But the bottom line is he knows. He's just going to say, keep eating that, because guess what? You're going down. And that's what's happening to our society, our people in the world. So this is why I'm passionate about the cooking schools. Let's see, what else can I tell you here? I have to keep myself on track. I talked about it. Oh, all right, let's talk about this really quick, and then we'll get started. So I say, let's start. All right. There's something called the Standard American Diet. Have you heard that terminology, Standard American Diet? The Standard American Diet has an interesting acronym. S for standard, A for American, D for diet. What does that spell? Sad. The Standard American Diet is sad. And the reason why is because it is refined sugar, high sodium, fried foods, fatty meats and cheeses and saturated fats and all of these things, and low something fiber. You see, God created us in such a special way. We have a gastrointestinal system that is so complex, right? Let me compare it now. I'm a cat lover. I love all animals, but I have cats because they're like low maintenance. I need low maintenance because we have a busy life, right? So let me compare us to a cat. So a cat has a mouth like we do. A cat has an esophagus like we do. A cat has a stomach like we do. And the cat then, from that point on, has something like a smooth tube that slides everything out. Because you see, a cat's diet is 96% protein. Okay? Cat doesn't really need fiber. Okay? They can eat 96% protein and everything processes, they get what they need and it slides right out. Now, after the stomach for us, we have our small intestine, right? Which absorbs all our nutrients, is where we get the nutrition, right? Most of it. Then we have our colon, or our large intestines and our colon. Because, why? Well, we need to push out the waste. Because you see, in order for us to get the nutrition that we need, how God has planned it, we need to have lots of fiber. Whole foods have lots of fiber. Okay? So we're going to talk a lot about that as we go along. But you see, if we don't push everything out, it gets stuck in the large intestines. That is why the Standard American Diet in the United States, one of the largest killers is colon cancer. Because you see, the food gets stuck in there, especially meats. There's no fiber in meat. There's no fiber in cheese, right? These animal products. They get stuck in the colon, they putrefy, they cause ulcerations, and then they cause cancer. And we have tremendous amount of colon cancer. It's no surprise why doctors are recommending at 45 years of age people get a colonoscopy, right? I mean, it used to be 50 or 60, now it's 45 they're asking for that. It's because our diet is dictating cancer, I had a supervisor, 48 years old, stage 4 colon cancer. And it's interesting because I used to bring my lunch almost every day. Very rarely did I ever go out or whatever. And she used to buy her lunch every day. And they would order out hamburger and french fries, ham sandwich, potato chips. And I never once in my mind, when I started thinking about Linda, her name was Linda, it still is Linda, by the way, she's alive, praise God. Right? But I said, wow, I don't think Linda ever ate salad. I don't think Linda ever ate anything healthy. And as I went along, she liked the smoked sausages and the cold cuts and all those meats and foods. And I wasn't surprised then, after I thought about it, that she had gotten cancer. Now, by God's grace, but do you know what they had to take out? She was out of work for a year. They had to take out like almost all of her colon. and she had, was a struggle, suffering, and sometimes when we're susceptible to these things, other cancers pop up down the road too. I don't know how Linda is today. I haven't been there in 7 years, so I don't know how Linda is today, but as far as I know, she's still there. But anyway, so you can see the standard American diet is not the preferable diet. So instead of sad diet, I want everybody to embrace a glad diet. How about a glad diet? God's living abundant diet. How's that? We want to live abundantly, don't we? And with God's help, we can do that. And so, without further ado, we're going to start with our first recipe. All right. So if you have your sheet, you can follow along. I'm doing the recipes pretty much as they're written. I made one little change, and I'll let maybe 1 or 2 changes that while I was preparing that I will let you know about, so you can make a little note if you want to. But we are going to first talk about breakfast. Just drink this a little bit here. It's going to sit around and go a little bit. All right. So we're going to talk about breakfast. Why is breakfast important? That's right. It's breaking the fast. It is the most important meal of the day. The most important meal of the day. Why? Breaking the fast. That's the first reason. It gets our metabolism going. It gives us our food for thought, meaning getting our brain food, getting things, going in our system. So breakfast, we need to start with a good breakfast. Did you ever hear the phrase, breakfast is a king, lunch is a queen or a prince, and dinner like a pauper? That's right. So when you see that, you have to understand, lunch is like a king means that it's the most important meal. You should be eating the most calories at breakfast, okay? You should be eating your largest meal at breakfast. Now that is never easy for some people, but I'm going to tell you a little reason why that is in a minute. So your lunch, like a queen or a prince, well, they're pretty important. So your second biggest meal should be lunch, and dinner like a pauper. If you have no money, sometimes you can't buy a lot of food, right? Skipping your third meal is really, for most people, optimum health, okay? I just want to let you know that. I know that's not culturally in the United States or around the world. Usually that's when we're gathering together because we've had these busy days. But I'm going to let you know that it is, the spirit of prophecy really supports it's best for most people to have 2 meals a day. And why is that? Well, is anybody here a full-time farmer? Anybody? No? Nobody's getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and tilling the farm and getting the chickens ready and feeding the cows and milking nobody's really farming, right? So you think about it, before the Industrial Revolution, many people, in fact, I think it was 70% of all Americans, more than that, I think it was 80% of all Americans were farmers. So, until the Industrial Revolution, which is now when Ellen White is really writing a lot more about health, back then, maybe you needed 3 meals because you exerted a lot of energy working your farm. But most of us sit comfortably 7 out of our 8 hours a day, right? And we're not exerting that. And so there's not a need to have a tremendous amount of calories. The second thing is because of digestion. We call it breakfast because we're breaking the fast. But are we fasting really? If you think about it. You see, we fast when we're sleeping, but some people like to snack all the way up till when they go to bed, right? And then there's really no fast there. In fact, it's really a problem for our system. Because you see, our stomach is like the most overworked organ. What happens with the stomach is that all the blood, every time we put something in our mouth, it goes to our stomach, all the blood has to rush there to aid the stomach in digestion and get everything going. If we are not circulating our blood, we are not continually, there's a saying that Ellen White said and Dr. Kellogg both had brought to perfect circulation equals perfect health. If we are continually eating and snacking and things like that and eating, we are not circulating the blood. It's all here pooling around the organs, trying to work them. So what we need to do is we need to give our body a break. Because you see, we can't rejuvenate, we can't recover, and we can't restore our body if we don't get good rest. If we're sleeping and our body is still working, we're not getting rest. So we need to cut that off. So it's best, if you're gonna eat a third meal, I recommend something very light. Maybe a brothy soup, maybe a fruit salad and some crackers, something grainy, something like with grains, because they're easy to digest. So, breakfast, most important meal. All right. People that eat a good, solid, healthy breakfast live up to 10 years longer than other people. Just by eating good breakfast. Now, remember I said, if you're not hungry in the morning, I'm going to guarantee it's because you eat too late at night before you go to bed. Start skipping, eating your light meal, a very light meal earlier. Get through, go to bed, and I promise you, you're going to start being hungry in the morning for that big breakfast. All right. All right, now I promise you I'm going to cook. How's that? We're going to start with our first recipe, and it's going to be the Tex-Mex tofu scramble. Anybody here from Mexico? You
I have a
are.
question. Can I have a question?
You can have a question.
Why is it?
No question. No.
Why is it in America? It's not promoted. I mean, in global. I mean, the whole country. Because you know, when you go to any hotels, the breakfast is always bacon, this cheap food. I mean, cereal, sugar, another sugar.
It is very rare that Ron and I, let me tell you something, we've been on the road for almost 6 years now, okay? So imagine how many hotels we've stayed in, how many places we've had to eat in. It is so difficult. It was one of the hardest stumbling blocks that we can do is our exercise and our food suffers because of, and I'm not gonna blame God's work, but it's such a challenge. It's the hardest thing. We're so thankful that we can get into a better routine now because we have a motorhome. But why is that? Because Satan is controlling the world. Is basically, that's all I can tell you. Because all of these things, listen, people corrupt their taste buds. All of a sudden, sugary stuff is what they like for breakfast. You know, it's in bacon and eggs. Well, they think that that's going to be good protein. I'm going to have a good day because I'm eating all this heavy fat. By the way, you know, Ron mentioned this probably yesterday in his diabetes talk, but you know that type 2 diabetes does not come from a high-carb diet or a sugar diet. Type 2 diabetes comes from a high-fat diet. And that's where the diabetes comes from, okay? All right, so we're going to start with some tofu. All right? This is simple tofu. We're going to use tofu twice today in our recipes. Now, let me talk a little bit about soy and tofu. There are people that actually are almost like a little concerned about tofu. Now, one of the things that I can tell you is the soybeans. You know, and it's really interesting because we have an ethnic culture here. There's a bunch of people from all different places right here in our church family. Very standard for Central and South America, Africa, Italy, so the Mediterranean and Asian is rice and what? Beans. That's right. They have them in different forms because it depends on where you are. Like I'm Italian, risotto, pasta. Yeah, or pasta, but you can do risotto and beans, okay? Then or pasta and beans, okay? Carb and beans. Down Mexico, rice and beans, right? Brazil, black beans and rice, right? Asia, tofu, soybean, rice. See, you see everything, because you see, in plant-based nutrition, to get all the essential amino acids, all the amino acids, especially the essential ones. Essential, the word essential when we're talking about nutrition means that you must get it from another source. It's essential. Your body is not. Now your body makes certain amino acids, but it doesn't manufacture them all. So in order to get a complete protein, we need these 9 essential amino acids. Soybeans are a bean that have all the amino acids in it. And so soy is extremely, extremely important to us. Now, is there a negative to soy? Genetically modified, okay? When you buy soy products, you really need to make sure that they're organic or at minimum non-GMO, because 92% of all soybeans are genetically modified. So you need to look and make sure it says organic, okay? Because organic not only doesn't use any chemicals, but also is not genetically modified, all right? So, we've got our soy here. This is regular tofu. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start this right now because I'm getting busy talking and not cooking.
Can we verify that what you just said?
You mean like what?
It is a legitimate,
Legitimate? Okay.
because I had a person who distributed a lot of money.
They said, oh, these are organic.
No, they said they're organic, but he said he distributed a lot to the Monte in Florida, he distributed big to all countries.
Yeah.
And he said, don't believe everything what they say about organic. I mean, he
Okay.
distributed massive tractor trailers.
Well, this is what I'm gonna tell you. There is no way to actually verify. But what I can tell you is, do you pray before you eat?
Yes, I
God can do a miracle when we do our best effort, because there's no way to verify. But do you trust there is no way, but we have to trust. What we have to do is do the best we can with what we have. I can tell you, I can assure you that somewhere down the road, somebody sold me something that said organic and it wasn't, right? I'm sure of it. But the fact of the matter is God does a miracle. That's why we pray and we ask Him to bless the food, right? So, anyway, so I just want to let you know what I'm doing here is I actually took some green pepper and some onion, and I'm actually just sauteing these in water. What do you mean, Karen? You're sauteing in water. Well, the interesting thing is, just want to tell you a little bit about oil. The reason why I'm not using oil here, there's a few reasons. The first reason is fat calories are higher per gram than proteins and carbohydrates. So we end up getting a lot of fat calories that we don't want to. The second thing is that oil is actually a refined food. It is not a whole food. Now granted, I'm not anti-oil completely. Listen, if you're making a salad dressing or something like that, I'm not. The only time I would tell somebody not to use oil in their diet is if they have heart disease. And the reason why is because even vegetable oils, seed oils, and olive oil and things like that, these oils are removed from the fiber of the thing, and they actually clump the red blood cells. So if you don't have heart disease, having a little oil in your diet is not going to be harmful. If you have heart disease, you do not want that risk. So I would recommend you really being oil-free. Now you can get your fats in things like olives, because that's a whole food. You can get them in nuts or seeds. There's plenty of the avocado. There's plenty of things you can do to get the fats you need in your body, because we need fat in our body, especially for hormone production, okay? So we want that, but we don't want to have it as a danger. So the first reason, or as I said, fat calories. The second reason is because it's not a whole food. The third reason, did you know when you heat oil up, it actually molecularly breaks down and changes the molecular construction of the oil to become a cancer-causing agent? There's something called the smoke point. The smoke point, it doesn't have to be smoking to hit the smoke point. It is a certain temperature of which the oil changes. And every oil has a different temperature. Olive oil is extremely low smoke point. That means cooking olive oil very quickly will cause it to be a cancer-causing agent. Okay, so there's three reasons why I'm good. So I'm just going to, now I'm Italian, I told you this yesterday. I use a lot of olive oil, not a lot. I've grown up with a lot of olive oil. My preference is olive oil if I have to default, but I don't cook with olive oil, okay? If I want to use like a salad dressing or something, I use olive oil. Or even when I do like waffles, sometimes I'll put nuts in them, you know, to grind the nuts up to get the fattiness. Sometimes I want the texture to be a little moister. I'll use a little olive oil. So I will use that. You're going to say, oh, but Karen, you just said if you heat that olive oil, it's going to be a problem, right? And you're cooking a waffle. I have to tell you, when I make bread as well, I use olive oil. Because you see, the temperature of something cooked in the oven, because of the moisture and the other ingredients, will not raise the temperature to the smoke point. So it will not corrupt the oil, just so you know. So you can use oil in baked goods. You can use oil in like waffles or breads and things like that. So, just so you know, so don't think, oh, Karen said one thing and she doesn't know. It's not true. I tell you the truth. All right. All I'm doing here is softening this. Now, I threw in about a quarter cup of water with these vegetables because the water's going to evaporate. So with oil doesn't evaporate, but water does. So I'm just keeping an eye on here, making sure that these are softening this. Now once I got these onions and these green peppers ready, I am going to stick some tomato in. I don't like to put the tomato in right away because sometimes it breaks down too much and then it's like, but I want like a little bit of color. So let me ask you, why am I using, I'm using here tomato, green pepper, and onion. Please tell me why you think I'm using these vegetables. Yes, but why?
Looks good.
It looks good. That was not the inspiration. But thank you. Flavor, not the inspiration.
Color?
Yes, but not completely. The reason why is because I call this Tex-Mex. And these are the colors of the Mexican flag. So I put these three. You're right, Sandy? Am I right? Why not? I had to make it. See, I have to be creative. Yeah, I have to entertain myself. And so, all right, I've got these. I got these now. I'm going to just lower this just a little bit. And I've got my tofu. Now, this is a very handy tool to have in your kitchen. It's one of my favorites. My favorite tool, my probably all-time favorite are wooden spoons. I love wooden spoons. I don't know why too, because remember I told you I come from an Italian family, and my mother's weapon of choice when she was chasing me and my sister around was a wooden spoon, okay? I don't know why I have an affection for them in the kitchen. I should probably take them out, but I love them. All right, this is one of my second favorites, because it's not just for potatoes. It's for tofu. It's for avocado. It's for so many things. You can get one of these. Potato masher. Okay. It'll mash it all up. So here's our tofu. I'm just mashing it up because I'm going to stick it in the pan and I'll probably stir it around a little bit. But as you follow along with your recipe here, we are going to actually add something called chicken style seasoning. Chicken style seasoning is just a mix of herbs. You need a little small spatula. A mix of herbs that will just give like a brothy kind of flavor. Now eggs come from where? Chickens, right? So we want to have a little bit of that, a flavor. Now it's not going to taste like chicken, I promise you. In fact, if you don't use chicken style seasoning, I actually in my cookbook I have a recipe for this, so you can make it yourself. Especially for people that are trying to stay low sodium. A lot of recipes out there, even like some of the store-bought prepackaged things, high in sodium. So you can adjust the salt and mine. I'm mixing this up. Now, tofu has no flavor. Tofu is actually soy cheese. It is made the same way cheese is made, only with soy milk, right, instead of dairy product. We're going to talk a little bit about cheese in a bit, but it has no flavor. You make it plain and you flavor it as you go. So I'm adding that chicken style seasoning. I'm also adding a little bit of turmeric, okay? Now, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. It's a root that actually has these great properties. But why am I putting it in here? Not just for that health benefit, because it's going to make it yellow. Now, what I'm going to tell you, you see this? This really doesn't look like scrambled egg, does it? It's not the right color. I promise you, when you heat it up, do not be deceived that you didn't put enough in there. Because I've done the mistake of, that doesn't look like enough and doubled it up. And then I had like neon yellow scrambled tofu, which is not appealing, okay? So, yeah, the neon is too much. So, we're just gonna put that turmeric in there. I'm adding a little bit of onion powder. It's a little moist in here. We're having a rainy day, so things got a little moister. Some nutritional yeast flakes. Is everybody familiar with nutritional yeast? Anybody not? No? Well, with nutritional yeast flakes, that's just going to give like a creamy little cheese, just giving it some extra flavor. And also has B vitamins in it, by the way. Nutritional yeast is fortified with B vitamins. People in the world, and there's a few categories of people, vegetarians, people over the age of like 55, are a lot of times B12 deficient. The reason why is because, number one, Satan has corrupted our farms and we have all these chemicals on our food that has killed the microbes in the soil which produce the B12. So if it's not in the soil, the plant can't get it and then the food can't have the B12. So, but the other thing too is as we age, we make something in our body, in our digestive system called the intrinsic factor. The intrinsic factor is how we assimilate B12. If we don't have the lower we have intrinsic factor, the harder we can to absorb B12. So understand, the older we get, we may need to supplement somehow with B12. As vegetarians, I recommend get your B12 checked every year. You store between 3 and 5 years worth of B12 in your liver. But that goes down and down and down, and then if we're not getting enough with our food sources, eventually you may be B12 deficient, and B12 is very important for our nerves, for our brain. So make sure you get your B12 checked. You know what Ron and I do? We just take one of those sublingual B12s under your tongue when we remember. We're not B12 deficient either, but we do it I was trying to do it like every Sunday, like once a week, but we don't always remember, so we try. But anyway, so that's an easy way to get B12. It may not be enough for you, and lastly, I'm going to show you my little trick of the trade here. I am using I'm using Kala Namak, which is Indian black salt. Now, Kala Namak, the reason why I'm using this is because this salt has actually a very sulfur flavor. What it's going to do is mimic the flavor of an egg. Okay? Now, can you smell that? I mean, right away. I don't know if anybody's smelling it. Is anybody smelling it yet? No? Can you smell it? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Over here, the front row. I kind of figured the front row was going to smell it. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it smells a little eggy, doesn't it? All right. Let's put this up. We're going to take this. We're mixing this up. Right before your eyes, this is going to start becoming like scrambled eggs. Now, I told you what the next part is, right? But now I got to tell you about the text. So if you go to the next recipe, you see I have now, remember, I am not Mexican, okay? So, but this is my version of a taco seasoning, okay? A seasoning mix that you can use in more, those flavors, but there's something missing in it, yet it's delicious anyway. It's no chilies. Yesterday, we were talking about chili peppers and how chili peppers are an irritant to our stomach. So, I put in my cookbook a taco seasoning that has no chili in it, okay? But it's got the beautiful aromas and flavors that you're used to. It's just not spicy, that's all. And so, what we're going to do is I wanted to make the text and the next. So we're going to put a little of this taco seasoning as we serve it, okay? So we'll just sprinkle some on. I gave you the recipe, but I'm not going to make the recipe here because all it is seasonings. It's paprika or smoked paprika, cumin, coriander, Himalayan pink salt, garlic powder, onion powder, and oregano, okay? Nice mixed together, beautiful flavors, and it'll just enhance our little in here. All right, I'm going to show on our thing. How does that look? It looks like eggs, right? Didn't I tell you that I had enough turmeric in here? You put any more, it's going to be like, wow! All right, so I'm going to let Ron take this when he comes back.
Ron, bring the tortillas.
And you put it on tortilla. You can have breakfast burritos, whole wheat tortillas. All right, but we will, all right. And Ron, I'm going to send this with you. Oh, sit it there for a second. Okay, yeah. And Ron is like my Vanna White of the Wheel of Fortune, right? All right. How easy was that? So simple, right? So let me just say one more thing about soy really quick. Not only is it a full protein, but something very important. Did you ever hear about sometimes you'll hear some talk about soy is no good for us? Has anybody ever heard that soy is not good? Did you believe it?
I heard that it's not good for men.
Okay. Sammy, I'm so glad you
Is that true?
Let's go talk about that for a second. All right. So, I at one time was talking to somebody in my class, and they brought that up. She says, I will never give my 12-year-old son soy products. I'm like, why? She goes, because it has hormones in it. I go, really? I said, do you mean phytoestrogen? Yes, it has estrogen in it. I said, no, that would be plant estrogen, not human estrogen. She's like, well, I don't want him to, develop. I go, okay. I said, first of all, soy is not the only product that has phytoestrogen in it. All your vegetables have phytoestrogen in them. So just, surprise, surprise, okay? But let's talk about this. First of all, soy is so important. It is protective of reproductive organ cancers, okay? So it is it's a health benefit. It's also helpful with lung cancer, lymphatic cancers. But let me address your question, your concern. Sammy, did you ever see a Chinese person? You have, okay. Did you ever see a Chinese man? Right? Did he have breasts? He did not, right? He had no breasts because they've been eating soy products for 4,000 years and nobody grew breasts, okay? I'm going to tell you, I am a nutritionist, we have a registered dietitian, and we have doctors as well as PAs and nurse practitioners at Wildwood. All of us agree that soy products are a benefit. Now, if you had just say something like breast cancer and you've been through treatment and your doctor says don't use soy, I wouldn't just buy into that. What I would do is say, I want to know why you tell me that. I want to see the research. Because I'm going to tell you, and this is the truth. I have more nutritional training than most physicians.
Yeah, sure.
Because they get 8, now not in Adventist universities, okay, Adventist universities, they bump up the nutrition rate. But outside of an Adventist university, your doctor probably got 8 hours of nutrition. Now let me just show, let's go back to my statistics in the beginning. If 70% of disease has to do with what you eat, why would your doctors only get 8 hours of nutrition?
Don't
That's
answer,
sad.
please.
Yes.
Don't answer.
Don't answer.
No,
I know, I will not incriminate myself.
Don't answer.
I'm not saying I'm smarter than your doctor by all means, please. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional. But what I will tell you is that I do know about nutrition. And I do understand how the body works. And so I would not just buy into everything, especially on the nutritional part. But I'm not going to tell you, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to tell you to go eat soy if you've had breast cancer. I want you to research it with your physician and make a decision by how God has directed you. All right, make sense?
I'm drinking milk. I'm taking milk.
You're taking milk?
Soy milk.
Soy milk. It's okay now, see?
Nothing
And you're okay.
Nothing happened.
You haven't worn a dress to church yet, so I'm happy. I mean, I don't know, maybe you have, but I haven't seen it.
I hope not.
All right, we're going to do our second recipe. This is another breakfast recipe. Follow your recipes. We're going to do a tofu yogurt. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of the reasons why I like to do the yogurt is because yogurt is a dairy product. And we need to consider taking dairy out of our diet. The reason why, first of all, listen, there is lots of nutrition in dairy, but there's also an extreme amount of protein in dairy. And it's more protein than human beings should have. You know, God in His infinite wisdom, as we were growing, about the age of 2, something happens, in our anatomy where we stop producing something called lactase. Lactase is what breaks down lactose into glucose and galactose, okay? So you've heard people being lactose intolerant, right? Well, God in His infinite wisdom said, you don't need lactase anymore because you're not a baby anymore. You don't need milk, right? So that is why, babies eat milk, then we start eating cereals and fruits and foods, and then we eat regular foods, right? Once we are weaned, we do not need milk. Now, we rely on milk for a lot of cooking and products and things like that. And like in this country, we have tons of alternatives, soy milks, almond milks, oat milks, et cetera, right? We have that. Other countries are not as fortunate. In fact, nutritionally speaking, milk may be what provides most of the nutrition for children in other underdeveloped countries. So I'm not telling people never to drink milk. I would never say, I don't go overseas and tell people, take milk out of your diet, right? Because it may be what sustains them for life. However, we know in these last days, there is going to be a time where any animal product is going to be dangerous for us, okay? And so although God had given us permission to eat some of these things, it is not in our best interest toward the end. But I will tell you, ladies, listen to this. Do you know that 1 8-ounce glass of milk increases your risk of breast cancer by 60%? 1 8-ounce glass of milk a day, a day, not just one milk. 1 a day. If you drink 8 ounces a day, it will increase your chance of breast cancer. So if you have a genetic propensity for breast cancer, that could be the trigger for you. Okay? Just so you know. All right, so that's one of the reasons why, I mean, there's a million reasons why I can tell you about that. But we're just going to tell you about that. So we're going to start making our tofu yogurt. This is so easy. First of all, you can see, if you're doing more plant-based cooking, you're going to find that you would really, it's really good to invest into a high-quality, high-speed blender. I use a Vitamix. It is like my best friend in the kitchen.
Hello? I can hear you in here.
It is my second best friend in the kitchen. The second best friend in the kitchen. All right.
I hate you, brother.
I love you. All right. So anyway, I would still suggest you get one. Now, they won't do the dishes for you, I will promise you. He's pretty good, so I really need to switch that around a bit. All right. So this blender, and listen, it's a little pricey. You may have like a Ninja or a Blendtec or something like that. I really trust the Vitamix. It's my favorite blender. And if you don't have a high-speed blender, you can get one, ladies. You know how you do this? Valentine's Day. Oh, just give me some money toward my blender. Mother's Day. Just give me a little money toward my blender. Birthday, Christmas, whatever other holiday, anniversary. You got a blender in less than you do, just so you know.
But just because you love me.
Go to Costco. Or just get it for me because you love me. All right, that's a good one too. All right, but if you're worried about the price, you can work toward it. It's not impossible. All right, I'm starting here with some, I put in some silken tofu in here. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Because I put that in I wasn't paying attention. I should have done put it in order so you can see what I was doing. I have some cashews here. And these cashews are actually being soaked. And I'm going to rinse them a little bit with some water. Now, I'm going to talk to you about that on our next recipe, so hold that thought. Why you might think I am rinsing and soaking, rinsing, and draining these things. There's 3 reasons why, okay? Not just one. So you might think of one, and but I want to know if you know all 3. So let's put our cashews in here. We use cashews a lot in plant-based cooking because they're very creamy. They make a wonderful puddings and creaminess. We're going to use them actually in our cheese sauce as well tonight. So I have cashews, and I'm going to put some fresh berries, not fresh berries. These are not fresh berries. These are actually frozen wild blueberries. Okay, high in antioxidants. I love wild blueberries, and I want to just here. These were frozen, but they were sitting out for a couple hours here, so they're not frozen anymore. But that's okay. But you can use fresh. Fresh is best. If you were in blueberry season, go get your blueberries. Do you guys do a lot of blueberry in North Carolina? You do like your farms? Okay. So blueberries. So I use blueberries just because they're my favorite. But you can use any fruit. In fact, Ron's favorite is mango. I do mango in here. You know, I love mangoes too, but my favorite blueberry is blueberry. All right. So we're doing any kind of berry, any kind of fruit. Let me try to pinch of salt in here. Just a pinch. Reason why I'm going to talk about salt in a little bit, but salt is going to bring out the sweetness. It's going to balance out the flavor of this as well. So sometimes
You use the black one, right?
Yeah.
No.
That one tastes like eggs.
Go with the salt, okay.
I did use a Himalayan pink salt though, and I'm going to tell you about Himalayan pink salt. All right, we're going to use a little bit of lemon juice. This is going to just give it, now yogurt is a culture, so it's going to have a little tartness. Let's give it a little tartness, right? We're also going to put in a little sweetness. This is raw blue agave. You could use honey. You can use maple syrup if you wanted to. You could use stevia. You can use liquid stevia, I would suggest. Okay? And I'm going to talk about sweeteners at our last recipe as well. So we'll just hold that thought if you have any questions about sweeteners. I'm using raw blue agave. The reason why I like agave is because it's a neutral flavor. So you can put it in anything and it's not distinct. It's not gonna be honey. It's not gonna taste like maple. It's going to just be sweet. So we're gonna use this, yogurt is technically sweet. And I'm gonna add a little vanilla. Now, we're gonna blend this up. Let's blend our yogurt up. Always wanna start your blender on low. And the reason why is because you will be the recipient of showers of blessings if you don't. Because it has happened to me more than once, and my best friend in the kitchen has had to clean the ceiling off. So, all right, let's start here. Just blend this up. Now, when you're blending nuts, you want to blend for it at a high-speed blender about 30 to 40 seconds because you don't want grittiness, right? Cashews are very soft, it's usually less than that, but any other nut you want to make sure. Yogurt is done. Now, I'm going to tell you, Ron loves this yogurt. Now, this yogurt, he likes this. So we made a batch before because we want to make sure we have enough for samples. And I let him with the spoon when he was washing the dishes, and he goes, "Can they make a yogurt this good in the package? Like in the store?" I'm like, "No, they can't, because we can make it healthy because there's no preservatives in this or anything." So now this yogurt is going to firm up a little bit in the refrigerator. I hope we have enough time to get it firm enough, but we have one already good. Because see, cashews are very interesting. Cashews, when you heat them, they thicken. But when you refrigerate them, they thicken. It's like one of those questions I can't wait to ask God. I'm like, how do you do that? That's a tricky one. When it gets cold, it thickens. When it gets hot, it thickens. I don't know. So anyway, I always find that interesting, these little things. Like I said, I have to entertain myself while I do this. So those are the things I think about. All right, so we're just going to scrape this out of it. And then I'm going to add something special to our yogurt. Now, yogurt, a lot of times people don't just eat yogurt because it tastes good. Because there is usually when you culture yogurt, there is a property to it that is going to be a health benefit. That is the probiotic, right? Well, we're not culturing this yogurt because I just used a little bit of silken tofu. By the way, let's talk about the silken for a second. So the first tofu that I used was the bean curd that you get in the produce section. This is silken tofu. Silken tofu is usually used more so for desserts, smoothies, puddings, yogurts, things like that. So this is going to be much smoother because it has a different process how they make this tofu. It's still a soy product, it's still a soy milk, but it is going to be much smoother and creamier. It's not firm enough to like saute or something like that. All right, but now back to what I was talking about. So acidophilus, or a probiotic. I'm going to add a probiotic to this. You can purchase probiotics in your health food store either by capsule or I get it by powder. Oh, and guess what happened? Ron, can you get me like a spoon or a fork? What happened was the moisture in here. It is moist in this state, isn't it? So anyway, it kind of clumped up because I poured it. So I'm just going to mix it up a little bit. But I'm going to mix this right in. Now you notice I didn't mix it in the blender. The reason why is probiotics to maintain their ability to build up our good bacteria so that we can fight off bad bacteria in our gastrointestinal system. They need to be refrigerated. And so they need to stay mostly refrigerated. I mean, they've been saying out this isn't going to change anything. But you want to usually keep a probiotic in the refrigerator. If I put it in this blender has a 2.2 horsepower motor that it will boil soup in 6 minutes. And I've done it before because the guy at the Costco who was demonstrating said it. I'm like, nah, it's not true. So I went home and did it and it worked. So there should be something in the I found something. I don't know. That's not. I need metal. Metal.
So Karen,
Yes.
so the probiotic, you know how you can get the probiotic?
Capsules.
Is that what you do?
You can either open capsules, but you can buy it loose. You can buy it in a bottle loose because people add it to things. So that's what I do. I'm trying to. I don't want to, it's not. I don't want it to be clumpy, but I can kind of break it down. It's taking too long for me. Come on. All right, Ron, come on.
You really don't have a small spoon.
You was my best friend.
Okay, so another question. You know, have you ever substituted cashew flour instead of the raw cashews?
Not in these recipes, I don't see,
The only reason I ask is because sometimes cashews can be pretty pricey.
that is true.
Especially if you're using them a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I buy them in bulk and I buy cashew pieces usually, if they have them available, because they're like a lot less. Not a lot less, but they're definitely less. Cashews are crazy. If you'd like something, an alternative, it will not be as creamy, but you could use raw sunflower seeds. They're dirt cheap.
Well, I just dumped them on the cashew.
Flour, have you used it?
All it is just raw.
Brown cashew.
And it does the very same thing.
So if it works, then try it, then do it. I've never done it.
Yeah.
But if it works, it's a good recommendation for me. That's fine. Whatever, yeah, that'll be good. Perfect. All right, I just want to crunch this up because I want to mix it in and I know it's going to show. I think everything got moist because it's so humid, you know? All right, this is so much better now. These are not roasted, these are raw.
Yeah, better to do raw.
We can't do roasted. First of all, roasted, you're gonna have salt in them, and so you don't want that. That's gonna kind of, you know, just affect the flavor. All right, I blended this for the most part. There we go. Now it's powder again. We're just gonna mix this in. Go ahead and mix. This is going to actually give this that little bit of that yogurty kind of flavor that you expect with yogurt, with that like little bit of pungentness. Yes.
I'm sorry, question here. She wants to know what the brand of the tofu.
Yeah, let's pass that around. Ron, do you have the tofu thing?
The probiotic.
Oh, now, N-O-W. But you can get any kind you want. You know, whatever, you know, this was, yeah, N-O-W. It was on the, I should have sent it around. It was on the, thing. Let me give Ron this. Oh, tofu. I think they wanted the probiotic. She said tofu, but she meant probiotic. Alright, does anybody want to see the tofu, the silken tofu? The nice thing about this tofu is it's shelf stable. So I just keep a bunch in my thing. I'm going to hand it around to you. You can pass it around. It's shelf stable. This is more new, but there's other ones too. But you can look for ones that you want. You don't even have to refrigerate it. Alright. Easy, right? Alright, here comes the probiotic.
So what's the name of it? What brand will it be there?
It's all right, here's the probiotics, if you'd like to look at that. All right. Moving right along. Are you learning something?
Yeah.
You are? Okay, good. Well, that means my dad used to tell me, if you learn something new each day, it's a good day. So, today is a good day.
Te mando la foto, fuera.
All right.
Do we try the sample from the yogurt?
You're gonna try, of course you are. You're gonna try everything.
All right.
Listen, I'm not letting you, listen, that's why Ron and I have a running joke, and I tell them I'm more popular because I give samples. And I will not cheat you on the samples, although he's the one who puts the samples together. So depending on how much he likes you and how nice you are, is how much he's gonna give you. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about, I did mention, our next recipe, if you're going along, is going to be macaroni and cheese. Who loves macaroni and cheese here?
I like it, but I don't eat too much.
Well, you're going to see how easy this one is. All right. So we are going to do a macaroni and cheese, a creamy cheese sauce. Now, the cheese sauce, when I developed this, I'm going to tell you the story behind it. I married somebody from the South. I am from the North. I'm Italian, and macaroni and cheese was never on the menu. Okay, I didn't get that blessed to get macaroni and cheese at home. Okay, we had lots of pasta. My grandmother made her own pasta. I mean, so we ate good pasta. But back when she was not putting American cheese or cheddar cheese in her pasta, there was no way. So when Ron and I met, right, I was like, uh-oh. Macaroni and cheese is like a southern staple, right? You people from the South, you know this is a southern staple. I said, oh, I've got to figure out how to make a good macaroni and cheese. Now, we were vegetarian, but we were not plant-based at the time, right? So I pulled out I like to cook anyway. I pulled out all the stops. I made a 5-cheese, creamy, delicious, baked in the oven, topped with sauteed breadcrumbs. And you want to know what he said? He said, best macaroni and cheese he ever had. And we got married 6 months later. So the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, ladies who are single. If you're single, but I will tell you, now that we have transitioned a few years later to a more plant-based diet, I'm like, uh-oh. Now I gotta make a plant-based macaroni and cheese that is good. Now, is this mac and cheese gonna be the end-all be-all like my 5-cheese one? Well, guess what? It can't be exactly like that because it's not cheese, right? But what I tried to do with this is take the properties of what makes cheese tasty for us and made a cheese sauce that I hope can resonate like cheese, okay? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the things that I did in this specific cheese sauce to make it hopefully a little bit more like cheese, okay? So let's start. We're going to start, well, I think the first ingredient is brown rice pasta. Folks, one of the things, especially being Italian, that has been important in my life is pasta. But what happens when you want whole grain pasta? Well, I don't care. You can try to feed me whole wheat pasta, and I'm not going to do that. I just don't. I was not raised on whole wheat pasta, and so I was raised on, pasta and homemade, but not whole wheat. So guess what? It just doesn't work for me. It's too chewy. It doesn't taste good to me. If you like it, I'm happy for you, but I'm not if I'm eating. So I had to find something that would resonate. This brand of pasta is actually a gluten-free pasta. It's called Tinchiata. It's a brown rice pasta. What I want to let you know is, first of all, this company has it has lasagna, it has ziti, it has penne, it has spaghetti, linguine, fettuccine, it has anything, rotini, whatever you're looking for, elbows, it has it. And believe it or not, it is really tasty. I said, listen, if I'm going to go healthier and want a healthier pasta, this will be the one. I'll pass this around, and I bring this. We'll start here again. There you go.
Karen, what makes it healthier?
Because it's whole grain, it's brown rice. Let me talk a little bit about grains really quick, because I was going to do that anyway. So we are talking about a whole food plant-based diet, okay? Meaning that whole foods are the primary source of our food source, right? So when we're talking about grains, now what happened when they did what you just said, or rice, perfect example. I know that there's a lot of rice eaters in this room, right? We like rice, right? Well, what happens? Most people are liking white rice. So take the kernel of rice. There's 3 parts to a grain. The first part is the bran, okay? So over wheat, let's just talk about wheat. There is the wheat bran. That's the outside covering. But way back in the 1800s, somebody said, if we strip that bran off, we have much lighter, fluffier cakes and cookies. So they started stripping the bran off. Then there's a part of the wheat. Now there's only 2 parts of the kernel left. Then there's the germ. Have you heard of wheat germ? Right, wheat germ. Wheat germ is where all the nutrition is. But let's not weigh down our flour with all that good nutrition. Take it out. And then what is left is the starch, or it's something called the endosperm. That is all that's left. So you've taken away all the fiber, hint, hint, remember, colon cancer, we need fiber, and we've taken away all the nutrition, and all we have left is the starch. Now you can see why carbohydrates cause the sugar reaction in the diabetic, because white flour has nothing to balance it out. God made that little whole grain perfect, just like He made, the rice perfect, brown rice. But when we start taking the bran off, we take the germ off, and we just leave the rice white, polish it up, we've now caused it to be a high carb, okay, with no fiber. So brown rice pasta is what, so Noella, that's the bottom line, is really we're keeping it a whole grain. All right, and I'm gonna tell you, this is a good one. You'll taste it today, you'll
So it's, I see on the bag it's not mushy.
Not at all. Now, you wanna make sure you find what works best for you. Some people like it softer, some, we do it middle of the road here. I like a elote, which is a little bit chewier, not chewy, but a little bit toothsome, let's call it. But we do it soft here, not mushy, but soft. All right. Now we're gonna use some cashews. Remember, I told you that this will make creaminess, okay? But remember I said that we have to soak, drain, and rinse it. All right, so let me ask you a question. Why am I soaking, draining, and rinsing these cashews? 3 reasons, but you can give me any one you want.
Sulfur to.
Very good. The first culinary reason, softens them when we're blended. Any other reasons?
They're dirty.
Nah, not really.
Is that the same thing you do like you do with the rice? You wash the rice to take some of that?
Well, that's what she's saying. You want to clean it? No, you don't need to do it. But not because of that, because these cashews are usually pretty clean. So, but listen, it's an extra benefit. It's not, if there was something in there, you'd clean it off. All right.
The
So,
slime off?
what?
The slime off?
No, not really. So this is the reason. On grains, seeds, nuts, and beans, there is a chemical, a protective enzyme on them called phytic acid. Now, phytic acid actually is what causes beans to make us a little, in a nice way, windy,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
It makes us a little gassy, okay? We can get a little windy. I like to say that. One time I had somebody in one of my classes who was from Great Britain, and she's very proper. And when I said, why do we rinse so, and she says, because you get a little windy. So I like that. I don't sound like her, but anyway. So, cashews, okay? So that's the second reason. But listen to this. The third reason, phytic acid actually prevents the absorption of minerals in our small intestines. So when we're trying to eat healthier and getting essential vitamins and minerals, if we're eating lots of raw nuts, and you'll see in plant-based cooking, we do use a lot of raw nuts. They're a whole food, they're raw like God made them, and they work very well with a lot of recipes. But if we're eating those, we want to get the best benefit, right? We don't want to stop absorbing too many things. Now, is it a death sentence if we don't soak our nuts? Has anybody here eaten a walnut and didn't soak it? And you lived, right? Okay, it's not a death sentence. But since you're going to be using them a lot, it's really important to do this. I'll tell you how I do it at home, makes my life a lot easier. Soaking 2 hours is important, but overnight is even better. Soak them overnight. Take all your cashews, buy them in bulk like I do, soak them overnight, right? Rinse them, drain them really well, put them on baking sheets, air dry them, stick them in a new bag, put them in your freezer or your refrigerator, they're soaked. Now all you need to do is put them in some hot water for 5 minutes and now you're good. You see, so now it moves the timeline quicker, okay? Sometimes we just have to think smarter, not harder, right? All right, so we've got our cashews. All right, so that is what we're talking about with our so we next, all right, I told you I'm going to tell you the tricks of the trade. The second thing that I'm putting in here is coconut milk. Oh, Karen, you're putting coconut milk in your cheese. I promise you, unless you have supersonic taste buds, you're not going to taste the coconut. But why I'm putting the coconut milk in here is because it is going to make the fattiness that cheese has. Now the cashews is not enough to make it fatty. The coconut milk is going to give it a little bit more of that fattiness. So when we're tasting this cheese, it's going to be like a little bit more like a cheese sauce. Okay? There's our toothpick. What's our next ingredient? Well, nutritional yeast, we talked about it. It has a nutty, cheesy, creamy kind of flavor, right? And that's what's going to give it the cheesiness. So we put the nutritional yeast in. A bit of salt. I'm going to tell you about Himalayan pink salt, but what we're going to do is talk about that in another recipe. I'm going to use a little onion powder. Why? Because onion powder goes like everything. I like it in there. All right. Cornstarch. This is going to be our thickener. We're going to use some cornstarch. You can buy non-GMO cornstarch. Corn at 88% genetically modified. If you want to use another starch, another good starch to use would be tapioca or arrowroot. But that won't be the same consistency. If you like the pourable cheese, by the way, just so you know, when I developed this recipe too, one of the reasons why is because this cheese sauce, okay, is multi-purpose. First of all, it works for a perfect pound of pasta, because macaroni and cheese should be creamy. If it is dry, yours was nice and creamy, by the way. If it was dry, it's not mac and cheese, it's mac with like a cheese drizzle, you know? Now, if you want nice and creamy mac and cheese, this is perfect ratio for the pasta, okay? The second reason is because I have teenagers. What do you think they'd like? Maybe on a Saturday night after sundown, we're gonna watch a movie or something, nachos, pour it right on. Did you ever have people over for Sabbath lunch? And maybe you wanna dress up a little cauliflower, drizzle it on, right? The possibilities are endless with this sauce. No, but you wanna know what my favorite one is now? This is my new one. You take the cheese sauce. Anybody like broccoli cheddar soup? You make this the base of your soup. You just add some plant-based milk, cream to make it to the consistency you want. Do your broccoli, your onion, whatever vegetables in it, and there's your base to your cream of broccoli soup. Creamy cheddar broccoli soup. Okay. All right. So that's why. So see, it's multi-purpose, right? All right. Here we go. So anyway, now lemon juice. Why? Because sharp cheeses have a sharpness to them. Lemon juice goes in, all right? And some water. Where's my water? Ron! Oh, never mind. Thank you. And we have a couple cups of water. And now, another ingredient, which I just want to get a little bit of this juice out of here, is, you'll see here I said a cup of pimentos, roasted red peppers, or fresh red pepper. I'm using roasted red peppers. Why am I using roasted red peppers?
Color.
Because I'm
Give it
Italian.
the cheese.
Because I'm Italian. Anyway, and also I believe it imparts the best flavor. You could use a fresh red pepper. You can use pimento if you like pimento. But I use roasted red peppers because that's what I grew up on, okay? So if you like roasted red pepper or on a sandwich, like roasted red pepper, broccoli rabe, all these kind of things that, okay. I forget, you know, I live in the South now and I can't get like a lot of things like broccoli rabe and escarole. Do you guys have those vegetables here? Not so much. These are vegetables that I got when I lived up north because everybody in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania are Italian. Like 1 out of every 2 people are Italian. So there's Italian deli, an Italian market, an Italian bakery on every block. So I can get all of that. Now I can't get it all. So I resonate. When I talk about this stuff, it just makes me think of home. Okay, so let's get this going. We're going to just, again, there's some cashews in here, so let's get this blended. And this is going to give us, now remember the roasted red peppers are going to give us that artificial orange color that we all know a lot with mac and cheese, right? So, just going to use a whisk. Now, the cashews tend to be starchy, and they do stick a little bit, but you just, in this cheese sauce, because there's a lot of liquid in it, you just have to occasionally stir it. But I'll stir it while I'm talking to you, because I want to talk to you a little bit about cheese. Why are we taking cheese out of our diet? Anybody? Well, first of all, let's start here. How many pounds of cheese does an average American eat in a year?
A lot.
A lot is a lot. How about over 40 pounds of cheese? It works out to be almost a pound a week per person. Okay? So, imagine that. Now, cheese. Why do we want to avoid cheese? Well, in dairy products, we talked about increase the risk of cancer, okay? Saturated fats, the cause of heart disease, saturated fats. Saturated fats are contributors to diabetes, all right? Now, cheese and dairy products also lung, lymphatic, and breast cancer. I mentioned that with the milk. Colic and digestive disorders. But how about, listen to this. You know, you read on like when people go and purchase milk, there's always like on a milk thing, it'll say, no bovine growth hormones. Have you ever seen that on the milk? Okay. Why they put that on there is because bovine growth hormones are legal in the United States. However, people 20 years ago or more decided, you know what? All of a sudden, children like at the age of 9 or so were starting to develop like women, okay? And it was advancing their maturity. And people said, I don't want these hormones in my, because it's affecting, it's an animal hormone. It is not a plant estrogen, it is an animal one. It's affecting the child, okay? So then all of a sudden, a lot of these milk companies say, we're not putting bovine, we're not using them, okay? So they put it on there, they're supposed to be following that, and I'm sure they get tested and all that. However, have you ever seen on a package of cheese, no bovine growth hormones? No. So they're probably using bovine growth hormones in cheese. All right. Also cheese, casein is one of the proteins in cheese. Casein is a known carcinogenic, a cancer-causing agent. All right, I'm going to lastly tell you something. Well, respiratory issues too. Cheese is really bad for respiratory. All right. Are we friends? Are we friends already? Can we call ourselves friends? Yes. All right, so now if I tell you something, are you going to be mad at me? Depends. All right, well, first I'm gonna warm you up here by showing you the cheese sauce, and then I'm going to tell you one thing. So I'm going to bring this around just to show you how beautiful the cheese sauce comes out. Isn't that nice? You smell it? Don't put your finger in it, Sammy. Other people are trying to eat this. All right. See? Yeah. So, all right. So cheese. Let's talk a little bit about the making of cheese. So what they do is they take dairy products, right? And they curdle them. I'll show you. All right. What do you think? You think it's going to be good mac and cheese? All right, I hope so. All right. You see? And our front row.
And it smells just like
And ta-da! All right. So, let's talk a little bit about the process of cheese. Okay, when they're processing cheese, what they do is to curdle the proteins in the milk, they're going to use an enzyme. Now, the enzyme is called rennet. Have you ever heard of rennet? All right. Well, let me tell you a little bit about rennet. There's 4 different kinds of rennets. I'm going to start with the worst one, okay? Animal rennet. It comes from the stomach lining of a sheep, a calf, or a pig. Now, I think, are we all here? Are we all Seventh Adventists here? I don't know. Sometimes I'm talking to a crowd that I don't know. But for those of you who are clean, abiding by clean, you know, the dietary laws of clean meats and stuff, we avoid what? Pork, right? If on the back of your cheese it says like animal rennet, animal enzyme, something like that, more than likely it could be a pig. So even eating regular cheese, you could be eating pork. All right, so don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you, okay? I am not. It's true, right? So then there's something called microbial rennet. Okay, but I want to know which one of you would scrape like black mold and put it in your food. No, because that's what the microbes are. Microbial rennet is mold. So you don't want that one. How about genetically engineered rennet? GMO rennet. Who wants GMO rennet? We've already talked about GMOs. I'm going to say, I do a whole lecture on organics and GMOs, which we don't have time to do here, but I'm just going to tell you, you don't want them, okay? Then the last one is a vegetarian rennet made of milk thistle, okay? No milk thistle, no regular thistle. And so it would be something that would work well with us, except it's very expensive and they barely ever use it. It is a Rennet, but it is not gonna be one that you're gonna see in cheeses at the store.
Do you think that they use them in the plant-based cheeses?
No, the regular Rennet?
No,
they
this,
can't.
this.
Oh, they don't need it because they're making the cheese differently. Yeah, they don't need it. They don't need Rennet because it's not a dairy product, it's not that protein. Here you go, Robert, we're good. I have the cheese spots ready here. All right. What did you think? Is that pretty? That nice cheese? All right, that's going in. Ron knows. He's coming back for it. All right. I need a vitamin. I need a clean vitamin. All right. Moving on to our next recipe. Trust me, these next two are the fast foods. So we'll be, because I can tell you're already getting hungry, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, well, we started, I'm just gonna let you know, just so you know, it is almost 5 o'clock. We started late because there was not everybody here yet, okay? And I wanted to make sure that we had a nice room full. Therefore, we will go a few minutes late. Oh, sorry. We will go a few minutes late. If you would like to leave, you can without your samples, it's okay. Hopefully, if you do have to leave, please, we'll get you something if you really didn't have to leave. But we did start late, so please don't be mad at me that I'm going over a few minutes, okay? But I think what I'm teaching you is so invaluable to why you're making these changes, okay? And that's what I'm trying to resonate with, is to why you're doing this. Because it all sounds good, but when you know those things, you're able to share with others. All right, so let's talk a little bit about raw foods really quick, okay? Raw foods, as grown and simply prepared is the model. And the reason why is because we get the most nutrition from foods that are not cooked. That is why your breakfast, you should be starting with a beautiful fruits. You should have fruits every day, and salads. You start your lunch with a salad before you eat your food. You need to get a powerful punch of nutrition. Cooked foods lose nutrition because when you cook something over 116 degrees Fahrenheit, you've already broken down the enzymes for the foods. Guess what? You can put your hand in 116 degree food. So you know that when you're cooking foods, you're raising temperature much higher than that. So raw foods, if you can incorporate more raw foods, you will have a better nutrition. We are going to do a raw mock salmon. How's that? So it's going to be like a mock salmon or fish. And we'll have it on a cracker today. How's that? All right, we're going to try that. So we're going to start with some sliced almonds. Now these are just sliced almonds. I have 2 cups of raw almonds. I would tell you use them sliced or slivered. It's going to be so much easier on your arm and your blender because you're going to be blending these. So we're going to see, you can see I have them, these nice sliced ones.
You want them to?
These are soaked because they're raw. You know my rules. It's very important with this recipe. In other recipes, you can get away sometimes with not soaking things if you are in a rush. This recipe, you need the moisture because you're not adding very much moisture to this recipe. You want to make sure that that you're bringing moisture to the blender, okay? So really, definitely in this recipe, soak, okay? All right, so let's get this. You don't need all that water, but. All right. So we're going to dump those, see how nice they are. So sliced out. All right, the next thing we're going to actually add into our thing is carrots. These are just carrot pieces chopped up. I chop them a bit because it's easier on the blender. You could put them in, whole, but it's going to be hard to get them crunched in. The next thing I'm going to add is a little bit of lemon. There's a little bit of lemon juice. Oh, I have a cup of water. Here we go. Add some water, and then we're going to use some lemon juice. And we have some celery. We've chopped up our celery as well. So we've added some celery in there. And now we're going to add our seasonings. Now I have some green onions chopped. I'm going to mix these in at the end. You don't need to mix those in your blender. I'm going to add though some salt. Now, I told you I was gonna talk about salt. This is Himalayan pink salt. Anybody heard of Himalayan pink salt? Okay. The reason why I almost exclusively use Himalayan pink salt. Himalayan pink salt is actually mined about 5,000 feet below sea level. So it is actually 99.999% pure. You think about 5,000 feet below sea level. So it's very pure. It also has 84 trace minerals in it. Trace minerals are minerals that we need in very minute amounts in our body. But there's 84 in Himalayan pink salt. So it's just so many minerals, it's really good. Now, hold the thought on iodine, because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about iodine, but Himalayan pink salt is my salt of choice. Then there's, yes, go ahead.
About the Himalayan pink salt, which one is the real one? Because I have been told that there is some kind of counterfeit.
Yeah, you know what, this is what I would do. I just would buy a good quality one. You're never going to be able to tell, because the fact of the matter is that people are out there trying to deceive. But what you can do is, well, I'm going to go back to what I told Sammy about the organics. Do we pray over our food? We ask the Lord to bless it. God can do a miracle. Your good intention of getting the best quality of something, God is going to. I can't tell you how to tech, because there's no way to really know. People are out there doing bad things, trying to make money. I can't, how can we stop them? Only on that glorious day, right? You'll be stopped, but that's it. So, all right, so anyway, so Himalayan pink salt, 5,000 feet below sea level, 84 trace minerals. Then there's regular sea salt. Now, believe it or not, though, there's two different kinds of sea salts. One is mined sea salt, okay? Sea salt that has been mined, like you've heard of Celtic sea salt, maybe?
Yes.
Or have you heard of real salt? These are salts that are mined, okay? I'll tell you a little story about real salt in a minute. And then there is sea salt that they get from the ocean. Let's talk about the mined salt for a second. First of all, the sea salts in general have at least 60 trace minerals in it, which is pretty good too. So that's a good. And the mined sea salts, the ones from Great Britain, the Celtic ones are kind of a gray color. Real salt is it's pink like Himalayan pink salt, most of it. So let me tell you a little story about Ron and I. So Ron and I had to go teach in New Mexico. So when we go to places that are far away, we try to take a couple extra days early, just so we can kind of enjoy where we are, because it's nice to travel, and we get that opportunity by God's grace, but we don't always have time when we're there to do things, right? So Ron and I ended up going to like some national parks, and we were in Utah. We were close to New Mexico. And Ron said, I told him I wanted to go to Salt Lake City, because I had never been there. He's like, why? I'm like, don't they have that big cathedral thing, tabernacle, right? And he's like, oh, the Mormon tabernacle. I'm like, yeah, doesn't the choir sing there? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I want to see it. But then he said, Karen, isn't the real salt mined in Utah? And I go, yeah, it is. And he goes, we should go on a tour of the real salt mine. Now, this is what I did. Ron, it was like in 2021, right after COVID, right? I go, Ron, I said, like they're gonna let us into the real salt mine. First of all, COVID, second of all, it's dangerous. We're not gonna let us in the mine. He's like, you never know. I'm like, whatever, Ron. So anyway, I had to go to Walmart to purchase some things. I come out, and Ron's like, guess what? I'm like, what? He goes, I called the real salt mine. I'm like, what happened? And he goes, well, I talked to this lady, and I said, do you do tours? And she said, no, we don't, I'm sorry. He goes, oh, it's too bad. My wife is a chef educator, and she talks about salt all the time. And we thought like maybe you would do a tour. She's like, hold on. Comes back, the owner wants to talk to you. So he talks to the owner goes, calm down, I'll give you a private tour. So anyway, we got to go, is it? Go. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find, right? So anyway, I have to try to see best friend in the kitchen, right? So anyway, because I was like, they're not gonna let us in there. But so anyway, so we go down, we got to go actually down in the mine, but I'm gonna tell you something very interesting. So he actually said, take whatever you want. We took like some big pieces of salt, because I'm actually asthmatic. You probably know that already, I probably mentioned it before, but I'm pretty severely asthmatic. And rock salt, especially Himalayan pink salt, and like from that salt mine, is an air purifier, okay? I have salt lamps in my bedroom on our nightstands because it's an air purifier. Okay, so we took some salt, I actually have, ready? Show and tell. Uh-oh, did I go? Maybe in my gut. Ta-da! From my salt mine, okay? Here, I'll pass it around. This is from the real salt mine in Utah. It's American made, right? However, you can lick it if you want because it is antimicrobial, antibacterial. But I would recommend probably not. But you're welcome. You're welcome to do it because it's not going to make you sick. Okay. And I don't know how many other people did it, but it doesn't matter because it's antibacterial, right? So the real salt mine. Anyway, so we go in there. But I want to tell you something interesting. Do you know the owner said he worked in the mines for 30 years? Okay? Now he's administrative, which he hates, he said. But he worked in the mine for 30 years. Not one time did he or his workers ever get sick.
Oh, wow.
Because it's an air purifier. Do you know that they have those Himalayan salt caves where you can go if you have bronchial issues and you can actually stay in there? They say about 2 hours will relieve people with chronic bronchitis.
Wow.
Okay, so it is an amazing how God has given us another natural remedy there. Actually, when I was in Michigan in Bering Springs they have one of those salt cave places, and they were running a special. And so Ron and we took 2 of our friends' daughter and her best friend for her birthday. We took them to the salt cave, and we stayed for like an hour, and they play, you can put on like Pandora music or whatever. So we put on the Heritage Singers music, and we were the only ones in the salt cave, and they had like salt all over the ground, and everything was lined in salt, and there were salt benches, and it was really nice because it was good for me for my asthma. But on top of it, it was just fun. So, and the girls loved it. They were like, 19 and 20. They thought that, I don't know why they want to hang out with Ron and I. We were just in Michigan, they spent the whole night with us one night, just hanging out with us. I was like, why do they want us to hang out with us? I'm like, I don't know, they like us. Anyway, so mine salt. Now let's talk about sea salt. So ocean sea salt. About 25 years ago, all of a sudden, everybody thought, oh, we should have sea salt. It's healthier, right? Well, the mineral count is healthier, right? The mineral count is healthier than the sea salt. But there is something that why I would recommend not just getting regular sea salt when you're buying salt. It's called microplastics. Have you ever heard of microplastics? Microplastics are the plastics that we ingest either breathing or eating food. Okay? The ocean, there's so much dumping in the ocean that these microscopic plastic pieces are all throughout the waters. Okay? So when they're drawing the salt out of the water, you are getting plastic in. Do you know that the average person in the United States eats approximately 1 credit card's worth of plastic a week? Okay? So you don't want extra plastic, right? Because it's not good for our health. So we're getting it anyway, don't add to it. So I don't recommend regular sea salt. The last salt that I'll talk to you about is table salt. How many trace minerals are in table salt? Goose egg. 0. None. That's right. What they do is they strip everything out of the salt, and then they want to make you feel good, so they throw in some iodine because we need that for our thyroid. Let me ask you. All right. Now I'm going to ask Pastor Daniel.
Pastor Brian.
Brian.
Brian?
Brian.
Brian?
Brian.
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 B.
B-R-Y-A-N. I-A-N.
Why?
Why didn't you go and tell me, Daniel?
Well, yesterday, Daniel was with me. Maybe that's why.
That's Brian. I'm so sorry. All this time I thought your name was Daniel. Thank you, Ron. He's now second best friend. Back to second best friend. All right. So here we go.
Okay.
So at least you corrected me. You let me say it a couple times.
Really?
I think at least once.
Yes, you were saying.
Oh, I was just talking. Well, none of them corrected me. You're the only
You were
one.
up there, you were having such a good time.
All right. Anyway. Okay, so, Pastor Brian. All right. I don't know if you noticed, but when you walked in today, you and your wife walked in. By the way, it's nice to meet you. You had $100 in your back pocket. Did you know that?
Really?
You did. But I have to be honest, the Holy Spirit's working on my heart. You see, I'm on a missionary budget, you know that, right? And I kind of borrowed without asking
Oh,
the $100.
got it.
So I'm sorry about that, but the Holy Spirit wants me to fix this. So you don't mind if I give you $10 back, right?
Oh, wow.
Does that make it right?
Well, no, not entirely.
Oh, it does. Everybody's honest. I didn't want to be too nice to me because he's a pastor, okay? I was gonna ask Sammy, but I figured he wasn't gonna buy it. But then I said, I'm gonna go with the pastor and see the pastor, how the pastor will step up to the plate here. All right, so this is what they do with like their salt. They will strip everything out and then they're gonna throw in a little bit of back in it. It doesn't make it right. Okay, table salt has no minerals in it except they have iodine in it, okay? Now, let me just tell you really quick about the process of salt. Number one, what they do to white salt is they over-process it by using, okay, the first ingredient, bleach. Who likes bleach in their food?
No.
No?
I
Well,
like it all.
don't you have it? It makes it nice and beautiful and white, right? Okay, what about aluminum derivatives? Anybody know about aluminum and aluminum toxicity? Alzheimer's and dementia. Well, they use aluminum. All right, here's my favorite. How about this? Does anybody here put rice in their salt shaker? Still? You know how people used to do that so that their rice didn't get clumpy?
Yeah, for the moisture.
Yeah, to keep the moist.
Yeah.
Supposed to.
You do it?
I've done it, yes.
Okay, don't do it anymore.
That's-
Because
I put
they put something in there, it's only, people that do it, it's only habit, because they have now made processed salt with something called yellow prussiate of soda. Yellow prussiate of soda is actually an anti-clumping agent. Okay, except yellow prussiate of soda is a known carcinogen, known cancer causing agent. So now you're getting Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, and bleach in your food, okay? So what I would recommend salt for, clean vegetables, clean it off really good. You guys get icy sometimes here on the front step in the winter, okay? That's what you can do with your table salt, because there's no other reason to have it. I would suggest buying a better quality salt. Now, the last thing about the salt, I mentioned about iodine. Himalayan pink salt does not have a significant amount of iodine, nor does the Celtic sea salt or the sea salt.
And they don't put it in there?
No, but this is what I would tell you to do. How we get around this, because I use Himalayan pink a lot, is that Ron and I, we mix 3/4 of a cup of Himalayan pink salt with 1/4 cup of an iodized sea salt. The one that I purchased, because it's a decent quality, is Hain, Hain. They have it in Walmart. I mix it, and we're not iodine deficient. You can also enhance your foods with iodine, which we're going to do right now, with kelp powder. Kelp powder is actually ground up seaweed or algae. It's an ocean vegetable, but it gives it a little bit of a fishy flavor. So I'm adding this to here to make this similar to the
seaweed
fish.
has the flavor.
Yes,
seaweed.
it has the flavor. And the interesting thing is that it's very, very high in iodine. All right? And lastly, I want to make this like a smoked salmon. So salmon, number one, we're going to use the carrots as the orange, but I'm also going to use some paprika. It's going to bring more color to it. But this is smoked paprika because I want to give it a little smoky flavor because people like smoked fish, right? Some people. Ron, I need a metal mixing bowl. All right.
Karen, you don't, tell me again why you don't use just the plain sea salt?
Because sea salt
It
has
doesn't have the,
microplastics in it. I don't use plain sea salt because number one, it's not iodized, but that's not even the problem. I need a tamper tip. It doesn't have, it has the microplastics in it. Sea salt from the ocean. Now, if you use Celtic sea salt or real salt, those are much better quality.
Right.
You could use those, but they still don't have a significant amount of iodine.
right, I use it in Himalayan all the time, but.
I mix it because iodine, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
why.
you're saying you use the sea salt.
I use Hain, H-A-I-N, iodized sea salt.
So it doesn't have plastic.
Well, listen, it may, and I'm using only a quarter of what I would be using. The iodine is so important that you don't want to miss out on it. So we don't need enough kelp powder to make it significant
So
enough.
can you say again which one you mix?
I use 3/4 of a cup of Himalayan pink to about 1/4 of a cup of iodized sea salt.
See, so.
I think that in the end, the iodized sea salt is better than the iodized table salt.
Are you using the kelp for the iodine or just for the flavor?
I'm using it for the flavor,
Okay.
but you're getting the benefit of the iodine.
Okay, because I was thinking about when you use flaxseed, it has the same flavor of the fishy stuff. When
But it's gooey.
that's the
It's
problem.
not gonna, it's gonna be like, the texture's gonna be wrong.
All right.
Yeah, that's why I would use this.
Okay.
All right, let's start this up. Again, I'm gonna blend this. Blend this. When you use enough moisture, you're gonna see that you don't need to use too much muscle. You don't soak it in here before you hold on it. You'll be here for a little while. What I like to do halfway through is just mix it up, just because I can't see in here. And you don't want an almond in there, it'd be like a fish bone, right? It'd be weird. So let's mix this up a little. All right, just another few seconds here. Ron, did you take my spatula when you took my tray? The red one? No. Could you bring it to me? Because I didn't have it. Oh, look, there it is, the kitchen. All right, let's get to that. And so this is our salmon spread. This is nice like on a sandwich. Like some people like on a bagel, you know, you can get some plant-based cream cheese, right? And you could put this on a bagel because it's like lox, right? People like smoked salmon with that. And you see how it's orangey? Just like salmon. Yeah, it's like a pate, right? It's-
Adam pate.
All right. Try to- I'm not patient enough to get all this out. We need to move on. All right, got most of it out. And now what I like to add is just for a little freshness, I'm using some scallions or green onions. I'm just gonna add that in and mix it in because it'll make it a nice color. And also give it a little pop of freshness and a mild onion flavor. So it'll give it a nice little flavor. And you can see here, this is our salmon spread. What do you think? Be nice on a cracker? Okay, because that's what you're getting on. All right. And ta-da. All right, that's there for Ron. And we're on the last and final recipe. And this one is easy breezy, I promise. This one is the fastest one of all. So, this one is our dessert today, and it's going to be a carob candy. Is there anybody here who's never had carob before? You've all had carob? Is anybody here who doesn't really like carob? Raise your hand, you can be honest. Is anybody who doesn't like, you guys all like carob? No. A carob is like a chocolate substitute. You have? Anybody, you don't like it? Okay. You're gonna tell me if you like it when we try this one, okay? I promise you you'll like it. All right, here we go. So we're gonna start by making this carob candy. Now I have here just a little pan. I'm gonna start with some peanut butter. Let me just get this out of here. Put the peanut butter in first. The reason why I'm putting the peanut butter in first, a lot of oil in peanut butter, so we don't want to burn the carrot chips. You know how like when you take chocolate chips, you can seize them up a little bit? Well, we don't want to do that with our carrot chips. That doesn't happen as much.
Is it creamy or not?
This is creamy, but you can use nutty if you want. You can use anything you want. because it's your recipe. The recipe is just a guide. You know what I mean? It should only be a guide. You do what your family likes. Well, I would rather me use crunchy, but I use creamy because I like it. All right. So let me ask you a question. Why don't we want chocolate? Okay?
Hey, caffeine.
Ah, very good. There's a couple chemicals in there. Caffeine and something called theobromine. Theobromine and caffeine are false stimulation to our nervous system. Our body thinks it's getting the energy it needs, and then all of a sudden it realizes, oh no, it's a lie. And then it goes boop down. And you're not sufficiently giving your body what it needs for energy. Okay? So that's what happens with caffeine. Well, I gotta tell you a funny story. You don't mind telling me a funny story. So when I was growing up, did I tell you this about caffeine already? No. I did. Okay. Okay. Sometimes I forget because I talk a lot in churches and I don't remember. Okay. So when I was growing up, my father was teaching us, like, you know, of course, about temperance and things like that. And he said to us, excuse me, you know, things that end in "ine" are not good for you. He goes, caffeine. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, right? Caffeine is not good for you. He goes, my dad would say nicotine. He's smart, right? Nicotine. He would say morphine, you know, drugs. I'm like, okay, right? And then he would say Christine, because my sister's name was Christine. We laughed. She didn't think it was funny, but we had a good time. It's like caffeine, nicotine, morphine, and Christine are all bad for you. Anyway. You know what? She hates when I tell us. That's okay, she's not here. Alright, so anyway, so dairy products, dairy chocolates. You're getting, again, your dairy product when you're trying to keep away from dairy. You know, you're getting lots of refined sugar, okay? And also caffeine and theobromine. So these are some of the big ones, right? So we know about caffeine. Caffeine is the most abused drug in the world. It's the most widely abused drug in the world. Okay, so what is carob? Oh, I got a good one for you. What is carob? Does anybody know what carob is?
It's a bean.
It's a bean. Thank you. It is a bean.
And chocolate.
It comes, well, listen, it's not.
The problem with the chocolate that we get, they always add blood and feces.
Well, yeah, and guess what? Another thing that crawls through the chocolate factory are little buggies. They're getting crushed in there. You have no idea how many bugs are eating when you eat chocolate, just so you know. All right, so carob. All right, here we go. Does anybody know where carob comes from? No, well, no. Wait, like what part of the world?
Normally Australia.
Well, you can get it there, but actually it's native to the Mediterranean and the Middle East. Okay, that's where it's native from. Okay. Now, let me tell you this little story. This is another. You know how I have to entertain myself well. This is what. So one day I was thinking about carob as I was doing the class, right? So I said, what? You know, what is carob? And it's actually the locust bean. Okay, so if you've heard of locust bean, the tree is called the locust, and it's the locust bean. Now, then I thought about this. I said, what did John the Baptist eat in the wilderness? And a lot of times people think that it is locust bugs. But I'm going to tell you, Ellen White said that John the Baptist was a vegetarian. So I know that Ellen White is telling us the truth. So John the Baptist did not eat bugs. I said, wait a second. What did he eat? Locust and wild honey. Carob and wild honey. I said, John the Baptist had a sweet tooth. I said, he's been eating candy his whole lifetime in the wilderness, right? Well, the reason why John the Baptist was eating locust or carob, it is nutrient dense. If you are stuck on a deserted island and they wrote you a letter and said, what do you want? The only food you should eat, get carob. Carob, let me read you some of the things. First of all, carob is a natural analgesic. It's an anti-allergy, an antibacterial, an antioxidant, an antiviral, and an antiseptic. Okay? It improves digestion and lowers cholesterol. Do you know it's good in the treatment of diarrhea? In fact, I used to make like carob balls, you know, for the kids if they have diarrhea and stuff. You can make with like a little tahini, maybe some honey, mix it with some carob, and it tastes like candy. They eat it, boom, ta-da! It's like an anti-diarrheal naturally. It also is preventative in lung cancer. Isn't that interesting? But it's also helpful in diabetes management. So it has vitamins, minerals. Listen to this: calcium, zinc, potassium, phosphorus, vitamin K, riboflavin, vitamin D, and natural, and of course it's a natural antioxidant. Okay, it is a high source of fiber. It is extremely high source of fiber. So, I want to tell you that carrot is an excellent, excellent food for us. All right, so we're going to start here. All I'm doing is I'm going to melt these carrot chips, so let's get this on. These will melt really quick. And of course, I call this Karen's Carrot Chocolatey Candy Cluster. Right? Did I call it that? CCCCC, yeah. However, yeah, that's how I started. I told you I have to entertain myself. Okay, so, but guess what? I also called it the Chunky because, do you remember that candy, the Chunky bar?
Yeah.
It has peanuts and raisins in it. Cookies, it is your raisins. So that's what we're going to do with our Chunky bar. So all I'm going to do is mix this up. I have some kind of high school.
You'll be onto something if you do some M&Ms.
But in my free time, ooh, am I burning this? Like I'm not paying attention. See, you got me on the M&M thing, right? It's not.
Or do some CNCs.
C, yeah. All right. C, the C and C's. All right, so here I am. I'm just melting this. You'll see it melts pretty easy. Just pay attention. Don't put on high or high, right? I'm getting it melted. Now, on the back of my cookbook, I'll take this with me so I don't burn. The back of my cookbook, I have pictures where I did these for a baby shower, and I did them in mini muffin tins with the little papers, and then I topped them with a little coconut, and you can see how cute they came out, right? However, Karen is not always, I don't always have that time to be pretty and do all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm not the greatest food stylist, although they made me do all the food styling in the cookbook, so I did the best I could, but that's not my gift, okay? All right, here we go. This is melted. Look at how pretty. Ready? Okay, so we're going to add in our peanuts, and we're going to add in raisins. Why? Because that's what the chunky bar had in it. We're going to make this nice and chunky. Okay? Now, we don't have time in this class to put them in pretty containers. So I'm going to make this like a candy bar. You can actually put it in a pan. Just make sure you put some paper in it, like a parchment paper or wax paper in there. Not wax paper, I don't really like wax paper, but parchment paper. And you could, put that in there and then pour this in and then you have it. But let's do it the lazy way, man's way. Pour it right on a baking sheet. If you have parchment paper or whatever, spread it out like a bark, put it in the refrigerator, harden it up, and then break, you break it into pieces, okay? This is like the easiest thing.
How do you do it again?
What?
How do you do it?
Break. Ron laughs because I do a lot of sound effects. We're at home too. I'm like, I like, it's always like, what do you do? I'm like,
Latin.
you don't know that?
Latin.
I do all this
Los latinos
stuff.
somos así.
All right, spread it out nicely. That's all you need to do. Make it as thick or as thin as you want. This, by the way, is a half a recipe.
And this doesn't even have extra sugar.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there are 3 different kinds of carrot chips you can buy. You can buy sweetened, barley malt sweetened, or unsweetened. These are regularly sweetened, and the reason why, and the only reason why I use them is because they melt easier, and when I'm doing the demo, I can't be watching that because it seizes up on you, so you really have to keep paying attention. So I use the regular, but you could use unsweetened because you have the raisins in here. So the raisins will get it sweet. You don't need to make this really sweet. But I use the regular sweetened for this recipe in the demo, okay? But you can use whatever works best for you.
Okay, so when you're given all of the health benefits of it, was that for the carrot chips or carrot powder?
Carrot powder, but this is made with carrot powder. Carrot chips are made with carrot powder. So the carrot part has all those benefits, okay? They do. So anyway, I'm going to I like pretty, so let's make it with a little coconut. Who doesn't like coconut here? Everybody does coconut.
The Caribbean.
That's what I mean, they all like it.
They don't.
They like it. Right, okay, here we go. All around. Okay, done. And we are going to put that in the refrigerator or the freezer. We'll put it in the freezer. That freezer is. That freezer, I had the blueberries in there. I was like a brick of blueberry. You couldn't even break them apart. Yes, please. Thank you. All right. Folks.
I'm going to stop.
I'm done. But he stopped? He didn't make it there.
That's not my house.
Yes, you did. Folks, I see the samples are ready, so I'm gonna stop talking. I want to tell you a little more about sweeteners and sugar, but we just don't have time. So I want to thank you so much. It has been my pleasure. I hope you learned something new, because my dad used to say, if you don't learn something new each day, it's not a good day. But today I hope was a good day.
Oh, no.
Many thanks. God bless you all, and as I like to say, with health, hope, and happiness until the soon coming. Why don't we pray so that we can enjoy our food? Let's clap our hands. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this fun day together. And we ask you, Lord, now as we partake of the food we prepared, let it be a blessing, Lord. Let it resonate with the taste buds, but most of all, let us leave here with a knowledge more about your health plan, your food health plan, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you again.
Another clap for Ron.
Who is bringing out the food? All right, let's go ahead. We're gonna start here.
Get it wrong.
All